Hi, I'm Michael Frankel, and today I'm going to talk to you about maximizing the value of your business for sale or M&A. I have a long career of doing mergers and acquisitions as an acquirer and a seller. I've done more than 110 deals, and I've found that there are substantial efforts you can take that will improve the value of your business when it's time to sell it. So a little bit about me. University of Chicago graduate. I live in New York City with my wife and my daughter. As I've said, I've done more than 110 deals. I've been a banker, I've been a head of corporate development, and I've been on the entrepreneur side as a CFO and COO of a startup. I've also written several books on mergers and acquisitions. So first and foremost, let's note that the most likely outcome for your company is a sale. The vast majority of businesses that have an exit do so through a sale. IPO is a relatively unlikely outcome. You have invested your heart, your soul, and a lot of your money and time into building your business. Even for the most successful businesses, you're probably spending 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years from the moment you launch to the moment you sell. And being a founder is not a 9-to-5 job. So preparing your business for sale is an absolutely critical part of growing your business. Preparing your business for sale effectively can dramatically change the outcome of a sale. It can add 10, 20, 30, 40% to the value. It is probably the single easiest thing to do to enhance the value of all the work you've put in. And it can also increase the likelihood that you're able to sell your business. Now, this is not to say that these steps will make the difference between a valuable business and a non-valuable business. The core of what you do, the offering to your client, the value you create, the revenue you create, that's the value of your business. But the steps I'm about to describe are a multiplier on that. They add value on top of what you've created. Or if you fail to do them, they detract from that value. So let's start by putting ourselves in the buyer's shoes. You've built a business and now you're talking to buyers about it. What are they thinking? First of all, they're thinking about information asymmetry. They don't know what you know about your business. You may think you're being as transparent as possible, but from their perspective, they don't know a lot about your business. They don't know a lot of the secrets. They don't know a lot of the hidden problems. And the less they know, the more worried they are. Because every knowledge gap is equal to a risk for them. Secondly, they're worried about integration. In most cases, buyers are going to merge your business with a business they already have, and they need to think about how that's going to work and will it work effectively. Most of the value that they get is going to be from combining your business with other offerings they have, markets they're in, customers they're already selling to. Lastly, and this is an important point to remember, it is generally much more expensive for a buyer to fix your business than for you to. Buyers are large organizations, they have large cost structures, they don't tend to be as agile as small companies. And fixing broken and incomplete components will cost them a lot. So higher risks and higher costs to the buyer are going to translate directly into a lower purchase price for you and a lower certainty that they end up doing the deal. That's why all of this is so important to you. So here are the big takeaways, and we're going to go through them in detail. First of all, failing to prep for a sale is like selling a 69 Mustang and not changing the oil. You've got something very valuable that you created. Doing the extra incremental work to make it look good and run well for your buyer is a no-brainer in terms of the value that you're creating. Second, you can't time M&A. This is something that people often don't understand. It is rare that a company simply decides this is the moment to sell and the buyers appear. Sometimes buyers appear earlier. Sometimes they won't be there when you want them to. Sometimes the market trends will move against you. There'll be volatility in the market, or the other side, there'll be a hot market and you'll want to sell. So there are a variety of things that are going to drive when it's time to sell that are out of your control. You need to be prepared to sell your business whenever that happens. And lastly, you can still have your IPO dreams. Some subset of companies are going to IPO. And if you're one of them, all the things that I'm laying out here are also going to be important to prepare your company for an IPO. So now let's go into some detail. Operations and business model. You need to professionalize your operating model. Of course, you are a nimble, agile startup and you're running fast and hard, and you focus primarily on the core things that are going to make you successful. You've built your offering, you've gotten into the market with clients, you've hired the couple of people that you need to that are critical. But as you think about the journey you're taking to being sold, you need to start operating more like your buyer. That's not to say that you become a giant bureaucracy, but it is to say you need to start thinking about the language you use internally, processes you use, the way you report information, financial and operational information, so that they start to look like a scaled company. This is going to be important because all of that material is going to be what the buyer uses to understand your business. And if it looks familiar to them and they can understand it, it reduces those risks we talked about. Similarly, you should have an org design and titles that look familiar to your buyer. Your buyer has CTOs, your buyer has heads of sales, your buyer has heads of talent. Make sure that when your buyer looks at your org chart and your team, they understand what those roles are and they can track to their own culture. Adopt market standards and processes. That'll mean something different for every business, but look around to the larger players in your space. If they're all adopting a standard approach, a standard process, unless the differentiation of your business is to be different in that process, be the same, right? Choose your areas to be different, but don't be different for the sake of being different. The buyer will be worried about that. Consider ecosystems, right? You are not trying to build a multi-billion-dollar business in one step. Figure out what is absolutely critical to your success. That's what you should build. Nobody wants all the other parts of your business, like the cloud, like your public cloud, to be amateur. So do one thing very well, and then for everything else, use ecosystem partners. Prepare and plan for scaling. It doesn't mean that you can scale right now, but you should have a plan. You should have a vision for how you are going to expand into new markets, expand your sales organization, hire more people, all those kinds of things. The buyer's going to want to see that you have that plan, even if you haven't done it. And frankly, as you grow, you're going to need those plans. People. This is probably, for most businesses, the most critical asset you have. So first of all, you need a full management team for a couple of reasons. The first one is, as a buyer, I know very rich founders tend to walk away. There are exceptions, but for the most part, if I write you a big check at closing, I'm not going to keep you, which means I'm going to look at the people behind you to see whether there's a management team that survives. And if I think there's a chance that I'm going to be left with a headless horseman, I'm going to discount the value of that business because there's going to be a lot of volatility when the whole management team leaves. Secondly, there's a lot of embedded knowledge in your head and in the heads of your other leaders. I want to acquire that knowledge, and there's a chance you're going to walk away. I want to see that there are a layer of people below you that are more likely to stay that have all that information. That leads to the second lesson, which is you need to build a bench. So you need a full management team, and then behind each one of them, you should have a strong successor. I'm going to look and see, as I want to scale this business and as some of your management team leave because they don't want to be part of a big organization, am I left with the people who can run the business and grow it? Be realistic about your team's ability to grow. Some of your people are great at what they do right now, but as you get larger, you're going to outgrow them. While loyalty is wonderful, it is not uncommon, and it's usually needed to level employees down and replace them with stronger professionals. Create a professional culture. Buyers, now more so than ever, are worried about ingesting a culture that's damaging. Act like the players in your industry, so that if a buyer in your industry comes to your offices, they see a team, they see a culture, they see an environment that looks like what they expect. Doesn't mean you can't be entrepreneurial. You should be, and you should be more agile, but they need to be comfortable that when they bring you into their business, your team's going to fit in. They're going to be able to retain you, and your team's going to be able to work with the rest of the organization. And then lastly, there is absolutely no room for inappropriate conduct. This is a deal killer. If you create an environment that has bigotry, racism, sexism, harassment, any of those things, you substantially damage your business and you substantially damage your ability to sell. You should take a look at your own Glassdoor reviews and other reviews and keep a pulse on your organization, especially as it starts to get larger, and make sure that you're creating a culture that you're proud of and that a buyer is going to want to be part of. This is something you should do regardless because it's the right thing to do, but it's also financially the right thing to do. Legal and contracting. You need a good lawyer, and you need to make sure that as you rush to market with your offerings and as you rush to market with your ecosystem partners, all of your contracts and your terms are reasonable and market standard. Renegotiating client contracts for a large buyer is a huge hassle and very expensive and creates a lot of risk. Similarly, avoid creating big liability issues for the buyer. You're a small company, maybe you're comfortable that people are not going to sue you, but if you've created a liability, if you've created a potential lawsuit, the second you are acquired by a large buyer, they are likely to get hit with those lawsuits, and they are going to find that in diligence. So be thoughtful about the legal commitments you make, about the behavior you have in your organization, because a buyer is going to look at that and decide whether there's an inherent risk, and that'll either cause them not to buy or at the very least to reduce price. Technology. This will vary substantially based on the nature of your business, but almost every business today has some form of technology. Don't build to inches in a metrics world. While you want to allow your technology team to be creative, you don't want them, and this applies to processes and standards that we've talked about before, to be creative when it's unnecessary. As much as possible, use languages, use development approaches, use code that is standard in the industry, that your buyer is likely to recognize. Think ahead to them trying to integrate your pieces of technology into their larger platform. And where it's possible and where it's not important to the differentiating nature of what you're building, create things that are standard. And build things that are extensible, build things that connect. This is important for your ecosystem as well. You need to use data standards and language standards and security standards that allow you to connect to all the other players in the market that you're going to want in your ecosystem, and also to your eventual buyer. Document everything. This is one of the great challenges of small companies. You have a small team, they're all tight-knit, all the information is in their heads, especially when it comes to technology. This is incredibly dangerous. You need to make sure that a buyer can see what you've done for two purposes. The first one is it'll make it easier for them to integrate, and if some of your team leaves, suddenly the code isn't a mystery. But also in diligence, it makes it easier for the buyer to get comfortable that what you've built is what you say it is. It's industrial grade, it's safe, it's secure, it works. And I'll use the IKEA analogy. Imagine you're the buyer. Delivering code that doesn't have documentation is like delivering IKEA furniture without any instructions. Then finally, market standard tools, languages, methodologies, and processes. We've sort of talked about this, but I'll repeat it. You want to make it as easy as possible for your small team to become part of a much larger team when the buyer brings you in. Clients. You're going to be eager to get in the market. You're going to be eager to sell offerings and get revenue, and that's totally understandable. But be careful not to give away the farm. If you have to discount your offering below what you think is market standard, and by the way, as a side note, you should figure out what market standard value is for your offering. What's the real value that you can get in the market for it, and what it deserves to be priced at. If you need to go below that to get your first customer, to develop traction, try to structure these as limited time offers, short-term discounts. A buyer will inherit all your customer contracts. And if the customer has been trained to pay X for for something, it's going to be awfully hard for your buyer to convince that customer to pay 2x. So try to retain the ability to shift back to market terms in the future for your client, for your buyer. Similarly, document your sales process. A rigorously documented sales process is incredibly valuable, not only to the buyer's sales team when they try to integrate you, but to them understanding the dynamic of your value prop to the clients. How long is it taking you to sell? What are the speed bumps? Where are the clients interested? Where are they not? Who's the buyer within the client? What are the conversion rates? What are the new renewal rates? What level of discounting did you have to pursue? All of these things are going to be critical for them to understand as they take your small business and try to create a financial model that assumes that they are going to gigantically enlarge it. They're going to ask the question, if we added 150 more salespeople, what could we do with this business? If we pushed it to all of our clients, what would the result be? The more data you give them on your sales process and the more standardized that data is, the better they'll be able to analyze that and the more value they'll be able to attribute to your company. Buyer profiling. So you need to start to think about who your buyer is. And while I'm not recommending that you construct a company for a buyer, I am suggesting you should understand who is likely to be your buyer. So what's the critical gap that you're filling that it would be hard for large players to fill? You've probably figured that out in the process of selling your offering to clients, right? If something was already easily available, it'd be hard for you to penetrate the market. So who are the players in the market for whom your offering is a gap in their solution? Who is traditionally acquisitive? Which of those players are likely to buy as opposed to build? And then remember the stuff that the buyers already have. If they already have certain capabilities, you probably don't need to build them. Use an ecosystem partner instead. Next, let's talk about marketing. So you want to get visibility with the buyers. Remember that the buyers are large, you are very small, and there are many small companies in the market. They are probably not going to naturally come across you unless you're very lucky. So think about your marketing and branding as not only providing visibility to potential customers, but also to potential buyers. Things like conferences, speaking events are a natural way for you to create visibility with the buyers so they know that you're out there. Building relationships with investment bankers is another way. You will pay, if you hire an investment banker, a fixed fee when they sell your business, regardless of whether they work with you for 1 day or 1 year. So building relationships with investment bankers that play in your space and are generally going to be smaller banks that work with companies your size is a natural way to both A, get value out of that eventual fee that you might pay them, and B, get visibility with buyers, because what bankers do is they talk to the market. So if they're aware of you, large buyers are more likely to be aware of you. Lastly, ecosystems are an incredibly powerful way to both build your business and prep the market for your own sale. Partners and alliance partners are a likely pool of potential buyers, especially the larger players. So build your partnerships and alliances with that in the back of your mind. You should use them primarily to build your business, but in the back of your mind, think of them as potential buyers. The ecosystem relationship you establish to either merge your offerings, integrate your offerings, or just cross-sell your offerings is a fantastic way to allow that large company to get to know you and your offering in a level of detail and over a length of time that wouldn't be possible during a sale process. It reduces those information asymmetries we talked about at the beginning and builds personal relationships that are going to make the buyer much more likely to be interested in you. So you've got all these thoughts. What do you do about this? This can sound overwhelming. The first thing I would do is do a prep for sale evaluation. Not a big exercise. Go through all the steps we just described and go through your business. How far are you from being where you need to be? How well is your development team documenting the technology development? How well have you documented your sales process? How strong is your management team, and how strong is the bench that sits behind them? How well known are you in the market? How many buyers have you identified that you think might be natural buyers eventually? Give yourself a scorecard and be honest with yourself. That's the only way you're going to figure out what to do next. Secondly, don't be overwhelmed. That's why you should not start this process the day before you want to sell, but years before you want to sell. Break the work into reasonable chunks, prioritized by that scoring matrix we just talked about. How immature is your thing, whatever it is? How much work will it be to fix it? And how important is it to buyers? Develop an action plan for addressing each of these areas. And remember that every step counts. It's not an all or nothing. A little bit of improvement is valuable. And then make this a team effort. Each business area needs to own their work. You as the founder are not going to be able to do all of this yourself, nor should you. There should be a sense of ownership among all of your management team that this is what we do. This is part of our job. As we're out developing our offering, selling our offering, operating our business, we are also in the back of our minds preparing over time to be buyer ready. And then track those efforts. Have some kind of a quarterly review. It's a journey. See how you're doing. See where you think you're stronger, weaker. Learn from the feedback that you might get from your ecosystem partners about what parts of your business need to be improved. These are all ways that you will slowly but surely increase the value of your business so that by the time you're in a buyer conversation, you both enhance the chance that they will buy and enhance the price that they're going to be willing to pay. Because I can tell you from a buyer's perspective, we quantify all of these things and we apply them to the purchase price, because they are usually things that if they aren't right, if we don't know the answer, if it's an uncertainty, we'll assume a risk, we'll assume the worst case. And if it's something that's broken, we're going to have to fix it. So let me leave you with this thought. You're a founder, you're building a business. This is a tough time. There is a lot to do. Your first goal is to build your business successfully, but taking these small incremental steps to make your business more buyer friendly will help you to not only improve your business operationally, but ensure that 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now, when you have that singular moment in time, because it only happens once, where you sell your company, you will get the full value that you should for it. I hope this has been helpful. Have a great day.